Over the last couple of weeks, we've been tackling some really tough issues around racism and ethnicity, and I want to get back to those things as soon as possible, but I really want to do it in person, so that we can kind of be talking through that stuff together, face to face. And part of it too is just that series, I called it Trending, because I knew that was kind of at the front of our minds, throughout the summer and then into the fall. But man, is there a topic that is trending even more right now? And that is that the pandemic has come knocking at our door here at Mooseheart. And really, it's probably been something we have been thinking about and maybe worried about for the last 8 months or so. Some of you have maybe had family members who have been impacted by this. If you yourself have not gotten sick, so this is something that is not new, but the new part of it is that it feels very close. Like it came into our homes, it's been at our front door, and now there's some fear around it that we didn't know before. And something that I've learned is that nothing gets people more afraid or more freaked out than when it involves their health or the health of somebody that they love. Especially when we get sick and there's no solution, or we're not sure how long we're gonna get sick or how much longer it's gonna be until we get better. It's just that really, and rightfully so, it makes us feel worried and scared. And I would say that a number of us probably feel that way right now. I know that I have felt that way at different times when I've wondered, man, have I gotten sick or something, or I hear about, different rumors of things. It's easy to start letting the fear bus take control. What I've started doing over the last 9 months or so is just paying more attention to how it just how I feel physically, but how I'm feeling emotionally. And so when I start to feel a little bit more anxiety, or a little bit more tension in my life, I kind of started creating a list of things that I just kind of pay attention to in my own world. And so I share that list with you. One of the things that I just try to pay more attention to is how much sleep am I getting? Am I sleeping more? Am I sleeping less? Am I losing my appetite, or am I wanting to eat more? Also, joking around. You might feel like, what's wrong with joking around? But if I joke around about things that are inappropriate, then that's telling me that I'm kind of trying to handle the stress or the fear that I have. What I mean by that is I have a really good friend who jokes around about coronavirus all the time. And I think it's because he's terrified of getting sick. So his way of handling and coping with it is to joke around about it, even if it's kind of inappropriate. Or here's one, imaginary conversations, kind of like replaying conversations you have in your mind with people that are annoying you. So you kind of have these imaginary arguments. That is a sign of anxiety. Or being just plain tired and stressed out, and you feel it in your body. At least that's how it happens to me, is that sometimes I won't notice in my heart or my mind or anything like that if I'm feeling stressed, but I'll feel like knots in my stomach or sweaty palms, or maybe my heart rate picks up a little bit, and everybody's like, wait a second, that must mean that I'm kind of stressed out or I'm tired right now. And something that I've seen as I've paid more attention to this is that I see people over and over again in the scriptures dealing with the same stuff. Sometimes we read the Bible and we think that, those are kind of like saints. They're people that are special. It's like reading about the Avengers or something, people with superpowers who know how to handle stuff. We forget that these are real people who often made huge mistakes or small mistakes as they were just trying to figure out how to follow God and live their lives. One of my favorite stories is actually exactly about that. It's about the disciples in Luke chapter 9. And they kind of go from having a really good day to having a so-so day. As the story picks up in Luke chapter 9, Jesus had just sent his disciples out to go to all the surrounding countryside and villages to do some preaching and telling people about the kingdom of God, but then also to heal people as well. And that's exactly what happens. They come back to Jesus and they start telling him, hey, Jesus, you wouldn't believe the amazing stuff we were able to do. And Jesus is like, oh, really? Tell me about it, as though he didn't know. But they go on and on about, and Jesus, his response to them is, well, let's unplug. Let's get away. And sometimes you probably feel that way, right? Sometimes it's like students, if you've felt that with it, like Thanksgiving break or spring break or Christmas time, when it's like, I just need to get away. I need to stop having homework to do. I need to stop going to class. It's just that feeling of needing a vacation, needing a break. Adults, we feel that way when we go through a season of just more work than usual, or more demands and more responsibilities than usual. We feel just yearning to kind of unplug and get to a beach or get to some mountains or something. It's just that, and that's exactly where the disciples are at. They had done some really good stuff. They had really, healing people is amazing stuff to do. Preaching about Jesus is amazing stuff to do, but they were tired. And so Jesus wants to get them away, except now what happens is all these people they'd been talking to in these countrysides and these villages start following them back to Jesus. And as the story goes in Luke chapter 9, verse 10, all of a sudden they go from talking to just Jesus to realizing there's a crowd of thousands and thousands of people. In verse 12, it says that about 5,000 men show up. Now, it doesn't mean that just men showed up to hear from Jesus or to see what was going on. What it means is that 5,000 men came, and they didn't come by themselves. They brought their wives and their kids. So really, we're thinking more like 8,000 to 10,000 people have gathered now. So much for the vacation, so much for the break. It doesn't matter that you're stressed out, disciples. It doesn't matter that you're tired. All of a sudden, there are some really needy people, and you're surrounded by them. Now, as the disciples, I feel for them, when I read this story. They just wanted to get away with Jesus. They just wanted to get off to the beach. I don't know, they wanted to, go play some beach volleyball somewhere, but they don't get that. Instead, they get thousands of people, coming to them with, more needs than they can handle. And as the day goes on, as what the passage tells us, as the day goes on, they come to Jesus and say, Jesus, I don't know if you noticed this. It's getting kind of late. The sun is getting low. We need to send these people away so they can find lodging, so that they can maybe get some food. They've been with you all day. They're probably hungry. Maybe we should scoot them on out of here, as though Jesus needed advice. But what happens instead? In verse 13, Jesus says to them, well, why don't you give them something to eat? I think Jesus is doing something. He's doing something to he's pointing out a weakness that the disciples had. You see, earlier, they were so excited about all the stuff that they did when they were out on these villages and towns and doing this amazing stuff. And Jesus is pointing out in a very kind of not so subtle way, well, if you're so amazing, why don't you take care of them? Except they can't. After this, it says, but they said, we can't, all we have is two fish and 5 loaves of bread. How can we feed all of these people? This is something that, we face all the time. There are needs around us that are beyond our ability to care for. It's more than what we know what to do with. And when we try to take care of things all on our own, we get more stressed out. We get more tired. What Jesus is helping his disciples realize is that when they actually come to him for help, he can take care of it. So as the story goes on, it says, why don't you give them something to eat? They answered, but we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. How are we going to take care of this crowd? But he said to his disciples, have them sit down, in groups of about 50 each. So the disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Taking the loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, Jesus gave thanks, and he broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. And then they, meaning all the people, ate and were satisfied. And then the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. They were all satisfied. The point is not lost on the disciples, and I don't want it to be lost on us either. That when we try to handle it on our own, we're not going to be able to handle it. We're going to dry up. We're not going to be able to finish the problem. We're not going to be able to finish the task. We're not going to be able to figure it out. When we bring it to Jesus instead, say, Jesus, I don't know what to do. He can actually multiply our efforts. He does all the work. He does all the heavy lifting. He takes care of the disciples and more. They walk away. Every single one of those disciples walks away with enough food for leftovers for the next day. They all have, there's 12 basketfuls of food left over, and they're all kind of sitting there saying, yeah, should have asked Jesus for help in the first place, instead of telling these people to get out of here. This reminds me of a story when I was younger and I was first learning how to play baseball. I joined a little league team, and the coach came to me one day, it was after practice or a game. He said, Casey, when you're in the outfield and a ball is coming your way, I need you to make sure you yell, I got it. Now, what he didn't know was that I wasn't yelling, I got it, because I didn't feel like I had it. You know, the only time I had ever played baseball before was playing catch with my brother in the backyard. And now all of a sudden, you know, line drives are being hit at me, you know, balls are flying higher in the air than and it's like the last thing I want to say is I got it. What I needed to be yelling was help. I don't got it. Like, get out here. Like, why am I here in the outfield? Now, sometimes we kind of walk around feeling like that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to say, I got it. I got it taken care of. You know, cue ESPN, let them know I'm about to do something amazing. This is going to be on SportsCenter tonight. You know, but really, we don't got it. What we need to be doing is asking for help. That's something I've begun to realize too, is that, you know, while I'm not on the countryside with Jesus trying to feed 8,000 people, I am here, and Jesus is here too. And I can turn to him and ask for help, or I can pretend that I got it taken care of. When I pretend that I got it taken care of, there's not a lot I can do. I'm going to take my best energy, my best efforts, and I'm going to get more tired, more worn out, more anxious, more worried. But when I bring my concerns for your health, my family's health, the wondering about what decisions we're going to do for this week or next week, or the stuff that I carry with, I say, Jesus, I need help. The ways that we can do that is like I was talking about before, notice what's going on with your body. When you start to feel knots in your stomach, when you start to have imaginary conversations with people that are stressing you out, when you notice that you're not sleeping very well, you're waking up in the middle of the night, when your appetite is going away, instead of ignoring those signs, those are actually maybe a sign, an invitation. You can begin to turn to God and ask for help. And you can pause and you can pray and say, God, I feel sad. I feel depressed. I'm not sure what to do. Would you help me with the next thing or God, would you just be with me when I go to do this? But he's there to help us. But sometimes we need to just ask. You see, as I've read the pages of Scripture, I've never come across any place where God told his people, I need you to just figure it out on your own. I'm sick of helping you. He never does that. He never says to them, you know, when you're in the outfield and the ball's going, I need you to say, I got it, even when you need help. I need you to pretend that you know what you're doing. He never does that. Instead, what we see with Jesus and his disciples today, is that we're supposed to turn to God and say, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what the next step I'm supposed to take here is. I'm really worried about my friend. I'm really worried about my mom, my dad, my grandma. God, would you help me? You see, he never expects us to have it figured out. He never expects us to be okay when we're not okay. So this week, that's what I'll be praying for us, is that we hear that tension we feel, the tiredness that we feel, will be an invitation to ask for help instead of just pretending like, I got it. See you soon.